Guys, welcome and welcome once again to this new chapter in the Forgotten Titans series. Now, as we step once again into the shadows of our past, where brilliance lies obscured by time, today we resurrect the legacy of those who shaped our world but vanished from our collective memory, from the laboratories of unsung scientists to the dusty tomes of overlooked scholars will traverse continents and centuries to unveil the extraordinary lives that history forgot. Our journey continues with a visionary such as Amadou Hampâté Bâ. Amadou Hampâté Bâ's influence extends far beyond the borders of Mali in Western Africa. He is celebrated as one of the foremost advocates for the preservation of African oral tradition and a pioneer in the field of ethnology. For those who don't know what is ethnology, then ethnology is the branch of anthropology that analyzes and compares human cultures, as in social structure, language, religion, and technology. So, as the cultural anthropology, this science which treats of the division of mankind into races, their origin, distribution, and relations, and their peculiarities which characterize them. His efforts have inspired countless scholars, writers, and activists to recognize the value of indigenous knowledge and to challenge the dominance of Western narratives in history and academia. In the cultural sphere, Amadou Hampâté Bâ's work has helped to elevate African storytelling to a global audience. His writings and speeches have been translated into multiple languages, ensuring that the wisdom of Africa reaches people around the world. Yet, despite his immense contribution, Amadou Hampâté Bâ remains relatively unknown outside of academic and African cultural circles. His legacy serves as a reminder of the importance of preserving and celebrating the diverse voices that make up our shared human heritage. Now, before diving into this Forgotten Titan history, please do not forget to like and comment, which is greatly help growing this community and ensuring that I'm continuing to provide this content. Now, follow me as we delve into the unique work of Amadou Hampâté Bâ. Guys, let's now continue on an introduction to Amadou Hampâté Bâ. So Amadou Hampâté Bâ was born in 1901, died in 1991. He was an historian from Mali in Western Africa, close to Senegal. He was also a philosopher and a storyteller, whose life's work became a bridge between Africa's ancient oral traditions and the modern world. Often called the Sage of Africa or the Guardian of Memory, he dedicated his existence to preserving the vanishing wisdom of African civilizations, ensuring that the continent's rich cultural heritage will not be erased by time, colonialism, or neglect. He was a devout Muslim of Fulani heritage. Amadou Hampâté Bâ was both a traditionalist and a visionary. His famous declaration, "In Africa, when an old man dies, a library burns," epitomized his mission to salvage and immortalize the old histories, proverbs, and spiritual teaching that had been passed down through generations. Beyond preservation, he sought to demonstrate how these traditions held universal lessons for humanity, blending African thought with global philosophical and ethical discourse. As a scholar, diplomat, and UNESCO ambassador, Amadou Hampâté Bâ challenged Western-centric narratives of history and knowledge, advocating for the recognition of Africa's intellectual contributions. His writings, like The Strange Destiny of Wangrin and his memoirs Amkulel, the Fula Child, are not just cultural treasures, but also profound meditation on justice, identity, and the interconnectedness of human experience. In an era of cultural homogenization, Hampâté Bâ's legacy endures as a testament to the power of storytelling, the dignity of diverse traditions, and the urgent need to listen, especially to voices the world has too often ignored. Guys, let's continue on his early life and education. As I said, Amadou Hampâté Bâ was born in 1901 in Bandiagara in Mali, Western Africa, in the heart of the Fula ethnic community. His early life was shaped by the rich oral tradition of his people, as well as the spiritual teachings of Islam, which deeply influenced his world view. After the death of his father, he was adopted by a local chief and later sent to a French colonial school, where he received a formal education. This dual exposure to traditional African knowledge and Western education became a defining feature of Amadou Hampâté Bâ's life. He often spoke of the importance of balancing these two worlds, using his unique position to bridge the gap between African oral traditions and the written records of the modern world. Guys, let's continue on his academic background and contributions. Amadou Hampâté Bâ's work was rooted in the belief that Africa's oral traditions were not merely stories, but repositories of history, philosophy, and moral wisdom. He dedicated his life to collecting, documenting, and sharing these traditions, ensuring that they will not be lost to future generations. One of his most significant contribution was his work with UNESCO, where he served as a representative for Mali and advocated for the preservation of African culture heritage. He also authored numerous books, including The Strange Destiny of Wangrin, as I was mentioning before, and aspects of African civilizations, which explore the complexities of African societies and their histories. Amadou Hampâté Bâ was also a master storyteller, using his narratives to convey profound truth about human nature, morality, and the interconnectedness of all cultures. His work emphasized the importance of dialogue and mutual understanding, themes that remain deeply relevant in today's globalized world. Guys, let's now expand the view and the work of Amadou Hampâté Bâ in the academic and cultural community. His work and influence extend far beyond the borders of Mali and Africa. He is celebrated as one of the foremost advocates for the preservation of African oral traditions and a pioneer in the field of ethnology. His efforts have inspired countless scholars, writers, and activists to appreciate and recognize the value of indigenous knowledge and to challenge the dominance of Western narratives in history and academia. Yes, indeed, in the cultural sphere, Hampâté Bâ's work has helped to elevate African storytelling to a global audience. His work, writings, speeches have been translated into multiple languages, ensuring that the wisdom of Africa has reached people around the world. Now, yes, he's relatively unknown, as I was saying at the very beginning, outside of academic and African cultural circles, but nonetheless, his legacy serves as a reminder of the importance of preserving and celebrating diverse history and cultures that make up actually our shared human heritage. Now Let's dive into his legacy on modern history and culture. Amadou Hampâté Bâ's legacy is one of preservation, dialogue, and respect for cultural diversity. His work has laid the foundation of a more inclusive understanding of history, one that values oral tradition as much as written records. In a world where cut in a world where globalization often threatens to erase local cultures, Amadou Hampâté Bâ's message of intercultural dialogue and mutual respect is more important than ever. His belief that every culture is a unique and irreplaceable treasure challenges us to recognize the value of all human experience and to work towards a more inclusive and equitable world. Amadou Hampâté Bâ's life and work also remind us of the power of storytelling. Through his narratives, he did not only preserve the past, but also offered timeless lessons about humanity, morality, and the importance of understanding one another. Guys, if I were to attempt a legacy on Amadou Hampâté Bâ, what would it be? It will be the philosophical defense of any civilizations on Earth, and especially the African civilizations. Amadou Hampâté Bâ's impact on the African community transcends mere preservation. It is, it was, and it is a reclamation of identity at a time when colonial narratives sought to marginalize African history as backward or merely oral tradition or oral folklore. In reality, Hampâté Bâ's demonstrated that Africa's oral tradition were sophisticated systems of knowledge revealing the written archives of other or any civilizations. His work forced the world to confront a simple truth. African civilizations were not primitive voids awaiting European enlightenment, but repositories of philosophy, governance, ethics, and science that had thrived for millennia. For transcribing epics like Sandiata Saga or documenting Fulani cosmogonies, he proved that Africa's grandeur lay in its ability to synthesize memory, wisdom, and communal values into a living historical consciousness. So you see, when I'm doing that kind of content, what I'm trying to do is to respond to what Jesus was saying. My people dies by lack of knowledge. Knowledge is our common heritage on this planet. And this is what we need to do, to share the knowledge. Guys, as a nice touch to terminate this video, I just wanted to share some parallel views that I wanted to provide between Amadou Hampâté Bâ, Plato, and Cheikh Anta Diop, because I believe by sharing this digression, it is a way for me to explain what is the vision I had about these three personas, how we can link them together, what do they have in common. So first of all, let's start with Amadou Hampâté Bâ and Plato. I see them actually as the philosophers, but more than just philosophers, they were the guardians of civilization. Like Plato, who sought to define the ideal city through reason and moral governance, Amadou Hampâté Bâ articulated an African philosophical tradition where wisdom, embodied by griots and elders, was the foundational layer of society. On Plato's dialogues, Plato was trying to preserve Greek thought in writing. And actually, Amadou Hampâté Bâ did the same for African orality. They both acted as scribes of the civilization's souls, though one worked in the academy, the other in the communal palaver tree gatherings. Now let's try to do the same between Amadou Hampâté Bâ and Cheikh Anta Diop. To me, these two visions of these two great African philosophers was actually complementary. They had complementary visions of African grandeur. Cheikh Anta Diop took a scientific approach using linguistics, archaeology, and Egyptology to prove Africans' materials and intellectual contributions to world civilization as a whole. It's the line that is defining the divide between civilization and barbarism. Amadou Hampâté Bâ took a more humanistic approach, showing that Africa's history lived not just in pyramids or manuscripts, but in proverbs, rituals, and the moral fabric of daily life. Together, actually, they form two pillars of African intellectual resistance. Cheikh Anta Diop proved Africa's historical weight in the world history, while Amadou Hampâté Bâ embodied its living wisdom. Realistically, these three thinkers, what do they have in common? They had in common the fact that philosophy was a tool of liberation. They used philosophy to challenge dominant power structures. Plato critiqued Athenian democracy's flaws because of the work that Socrates was doing and his execution. Cheikh Anta Diop dismantled Eurocentric historiography, and Amadou Hampâté Bâ countered cultural erasure by colonial and post-colonial elites. They shared a common premise: to control a people's past is to control the future. Indeed, Amadou Hampâté Bâ's work ensured Africans could access an unbroken chain of self-knowledge. Can we say that this parallel between these three thinkers is meaningful? I believe it does, because linking these three thinkers reveal a universal pattern. Civilizations under threat produce intellectuals who become somehow guardians of memory. Plato defended Greek rationality against sophistry. Cheikh Anta Diop and Amadou Hampâté Bâ defended African historicity against colonial denialism. The parallel also highlights something more important. Cheikh Anta Diop rigor evidence-based rebuttals to racism, and Amadou Hampâté Bâ's poetry, emotional resonance of lived traditions are not opposites. They're actually twin strategies, or let's say parallel strategies in the same struggle, in the same goal. All three prioritized education as a liberator mechanism. Plato's academy, Cheikh Anta Diop university activism, and Amadou Hampâté Bâ's UNESCO advocacy all sought to institutionalize their visions. Now, as a final reflection, what can we say about Amadou Hampâté Bâ's legacy? It is actually a call to action, as we saw the same for Plato, as we saw the same for Cheikh Anta Diop. He wanted to see African history not as a footnote to Europe's story, but as a philosophical tradition in its own right, one that speaks to universal human questions, like Plato's Republic or Cheikh Anta Diop's Nation Nègre and Culture. His work insists that a civilization's greatness is measured by its ability to transmit wisdom, knowledge across generations and centuries. In a world still grappling with epistemic injustice, Amadou Hampâté Bâ's life reminds us that the fight for memory is a fight for dignity and recognition as well. So with that, I'd like to stop this video today. Thanks very much for your time. And once again, if you want to see the knowledge to be shared across everyone and across, YouTube and others, please share, like, subscribe. I would appreciate that, because this will be a great support for the channel and in what I'm doing. So thanks very much for your time, and I see you very soon.